wrote, I think very movingly about that idea of the right kind of drugs versus the wrong kind of drugs. I put both of those terms in quotes, and the right types of drug users versus the wrong types of drug users. When the NYPD entered your own apartment and removed you to, I guess, put you, let me read you your own language, how you describe that moment. And it gets to the disparities in punishment between whites and African Americans. Quote, "If not for an accident of my birth, my story could have been entirely different. The NYPD chose to take me, a white guy living in an upscale Manhattan neighborhood, to a hospital rather than booking me. If I'd been a person of color in a different neighborhood, I could have been sentenced to years in prison or even shot and killed." So I was surprised in reading your book because I was aware of the disparities in cocaine and crack, but there were other examples you gave, such as what were known as the opium dens and Chinese immigrants. I guess this was early in the 20th century, that type of disparity in how entire groups were viewed and then treated if they were caught as being on the wrong side of the wrong users line were. Can you talk about that difference in racial disparities kind of across history?
Sure. And thanks for bringing up that example, because it was an example for me of how racism redounds to hurt everyone. It's a classic example of how we can't just have inequity in one portion of our addiction treatment and not feel the consequences. So I was lucky that I wasn't shot, but the systematic oppression that has pervaded our addiction treatment system still has hurt me and hurts everyone, because it impairs the way that we respond to addiction and makes it so even today our addiction treatment system is really a problem. And that goes back centuries. It goes back centuries because as long as we've had a notion of addiction treatment, we've had a notion of a two-tiered system. So in the late 19th, early 20th century, there was a huge outcry about the wrong kinds of users, primarily Chinese immigrants, who were doing immense work to try to build our country's railroads and to develop our American West and throughout the country. And on the other hand, there was still a gray market or even a white market of regulated opioids that was available to middle class and upper class Americans. So we tried to set up at that time a two-tiered system where whites could go to get treatment, where the Chinese were subjected to prohibitionism and punishment. But what that set up actually was a massive failure across the board. And then in the 1910s, 1920s, the whole thing collapsed into outright stigma and prohibition, and nobody could get treatment, and everybody was subject to these harsh law and order crackdowns, to the point where the American Medical Association came out and said that addiction is just bad action. It's just immoral behavior, and we won't have any part in it. We doctors won't do anything to help people with addiction, which was a massive, massive failure that lasted for decades and decades. And even today, we're still trying to force the doors of medicine open, and we still live with that sort of legacy of a two-tiered treatment system.
Thanks for watching this video clip of the SpeakGood Podcast. If you'd like to hear the complete episode, please check out your favorite podcast directory and subscribe now. Thanks for watching.